Sorry, we're closed.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back. Episode 53 of Sorry We're Closed. I am your host, Mr. Patrick James Light. And guys, we got some fun things to talk about, as always. First things first, let's talk a little baseball. I know that I'm not, I don't talk only baseball on the pod, but let's talk a little baseball right now, right? Rob Manfred came out, said that teams should expect to prepare for playing a full spring training and a full 162-game season. Everything to start on time as per usual. That's phenomenal news. I think every baseball fan everywhere loves hearing that. It'd be awesome to have. I know this is the kind of, hopefully, the back end of this pandemic, the back end of this virus, and we have the vaccines rolling out. We're getting a new president in office who's has seemingly, things that I've seen, seem to have taken a pretty aggressive approach on these vaccines and trying to get them further pushed out and so forth, which can only be good for us as long as there's nothing in there trying to kill us. And you know, we're getting closer and closer to the end with every day, which is, I think everyone is on board with that. And no matter your political affiliation, no matter which baseball team you root for, I think everyone's on board for this fucking thing to be over. So this is what Rob Manfred is saying. Now, on the counter end of that, the other end of that, you have still a deadly virus going around, and who knows? I mean, February probably would be a tough month. You got to imagine January, February are tough flu months. I think March is too. You have to imagine these are going to be might be the toughest months we have. Granted, we have a lot more people who have already had it. We got a lot of people immune to it, so forth. So hopefully it's controlled somewhat. But the thing I want to remind you folks out there is that we've been down this road before. Last year, right in the heat of the beginning of the pandemic, they had talks about baseball and where it was going that year and so forth. And then we had leaked pieces of information. Rob Manfred probably came out and said stuff I don't remember off the top of my head, but we had leaked pieces of information that talked about how they wanted baseball by July 4th. And they gave some, and I've mentioned this countless times on this podcast, and they then gave a bullshit agreement to the players, and the players obviously were going to turn it down, and then they pinned the players up against the people as far as the players being in the way, greedy baseball players, greedy millionaires being in the way of fans getting their baseball. The owners were on board, blah, 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 right? So we've seen this play before. Now, I'm not saying that they're doing that again. Maybe, you know, there are talks. You know, I know the CBA is up next year, so they, you know, there are probably already preliminary talks happening right now. Based off of last year, I think everyone's kind of nervous that maybe baseball will start a little bit late in 2022 because of the CBA talks. They went so poorly in the summer. Who knows what they'll do next winter? And now, I don't know exactly the ins and outs of what has to be agreed to, what doesn't have to be agreed to by the players as far as a shortened season, a non-shortened season. I'm sure if it's similar as last year and we start talking about a shortened season, salary's going to be a big thing again. We don't know. You know, Rob Manfred believes, hopefully, he's not just saying this, hopefully he actually does believe we'll get a full season in so that salary is no longer an issue. Although, with lower attendance, you know the owners are going to come after these players' salaries again. And I don't know what the thought process is on this. I haven't seen it mentioned yet. But if there's no fans in the stands, or 25% of fans in the stands, I don't see based off of how the owners acted last year, I don't see them just being like, you know what, just give them the full salaries, let's move on, let's play the games. I don't see that happening. I hope that I'm wrong, but I don't see that happening. So with that in mind, although we're seeing a full 162 game season, possibly full spring training, I don't see these owners just handing over full salaries, which means if that is the case, this means that we are in for another battle. Anytime you start talking about money, things are different. It's not everyone agrees to the COVID safety protocols, blah blah blah. I know it's a pandemic and all, but that was pretty nonsense as far as everything. Everything was centered last year around money, and that's what it will be centered again this year if we get to that point. And I do not see it not getting there at this time. I think it would be well suited for the players to stay behind the scenes here and I hope, listen, I was in those meetings. I was in the Players Association meetings when Tony Clark and those guys would come to your big league camp and they talk about the player, talk about what have you. Whether the CBA is coming up or prepare for a holdout. Nah, we don't think we're going to be in a holdout. Whether or not, all these different nuances that went behind the scenes. And most of it goes over most people's heads because the meeting's at 7:30 in the morning. No one wants to listen to it. But by the same token, these meetings never prepared, at least not when I was there, but granted, I wasn't during the CBA, I don't think. But those meetings never prepared me for a PR move. We didn't have a PR team to watch out for us because the PR team that watches out for us in season is hired by the team. The Red Sox PR team is who watches out for the Red Sox players. When it's owners versus players, that PR team watches out for the owners. They don't watch out for the players anymore. So I surely hope that part of these discussions, when they come to these clubhouses, or even if they're doing it through email or whatever, they advise these guys to stay off commenting these, whether you're Blake Snell playing video games, Trevor Bauer on Twitter, whatever it might be. I hope they stay behind the scenes and let this happen behind closed doors, because that's what you need. You need guys like Scott Boras to come out and talk about it and talk some sense into it. You need the guys with an abundance of knowledge of the situation to do it, not the players who are not skilled in this. Most of these guys, a lot of these guys don't have college degrees. Some of them don't have even a day in college. Not saying they're uneducated people, but the intricacies of these types of deals are there's so much detail in them. You don't really have a great understanding of what you're talking about. And from a PR stand, even if you don't know what you're talking about, from a PR, it's a PR nightmare for you to come out and complain about the owners trying to gyp you out of instead of a $5 million contract, a $3 million contract. It's a PR nightmare. It doesn't matter that you might be right in that situation. It's still a PR nightmare. And people who are making $50,000 a year and now getting their salaries cut or being furloughed or what have you because of a pandemic and are trying to put food on the table for their families don't give a shit about you only making $3 million instead of $5 million that year. And now the owners get away with this because they stay behind closed doors. They don't say anything out loud. They're not putting these things out into the paper. They're not putting things out onto Twitch or to Twitter or to Instagram. They are saying behind closed doors. They're letting their team, their lawyers handle this, and their PR team make it look like they're doing their best. And they won last time because of this. So let's hope that we get into a better situation this year. And I really hope that Tony Clark is relaying this to the players to keep your mouth shut and let this play out behind closed doors if it starts getting to a salary negotiation again. Now, I'm not sure that it can get to a salary negotiation again. I'm assuming it can based off last summer. But hopefully we get a full spring training, we get a full season. Everyone gets their money. The owners get theirs, the players get theirs, and we're all happy. And now we can go, and at least some of us can attend some games and watch some baseball and enjoy somewhat of a normal summer because, you hear a lot of rumors and things, but, hopefully the things that I'm hearing are possibly in July 4th. Even August maybe being back to somewhat normal. I'm sure mask wearing will be a thing for the foreseeable future, but being able to be in crowded bars again, being able to go to games, being able to do things with some sense of normalcy is hopefully on the horizon here this summer, and be ready again, be ready to go, next fall and what have you, moving forward. In every industry, not just that. Obviously, my own personal, the restaurant industry is a terrible industry to be a part of during this time, but let's hope that we can do this. But again, the best way to do this for the players to come out of this without looking like pieces of shit is by staying behind closed doors, not saying a word and shutting your mouths, and letting the lawyers, letting the PR teams, let them handle this situation and not be you. Because in reality, you really don't know what you're talking about. And even if you're right, no one cares if you're right. No one's gonna bat an eye if you making $1 million less and only making $3 million. Not going to be a thing. Not going to be a thing people care about. So, with that being said, just prepare yourselves, guys. Prepare yourselves for stuff like that. Prepare yourselves for those things. Prepare yourselves for the owners to make the players look stupid, and don't just jump on the players on the owner's side. I put out that tweet last summer about what the owners were doing to the players and why, and fans falling for it. I didn't reach everyone, obviously, and it'll be tough for me to reach it again. But for those of you listening, please think of that. And when I'm on Twitter, come to my side. Get on my side when I'm tweeting about it, because it is a brutal world out there when you're defending millionaires, as some people would say, and it's not an easy task. So get the Pat Light gang and flood my comments in support. So I would greatly appreciate that. With that being said, guys, everything else, I will keep this one short as I always do. Wanted to talk a little bit of baseball today because I do enjoy it and we're getting close. And this is kind of that time of year where we get to that point where the holidays are over and now we start. The cold is not as cool anymore because it doesn't add to the scenery of life where you want the snow, you want the cold because it's Christmas and you have Santa and all that stuff. Now we're in January, now the dog days of winter, and you're like, it's kind of like, get the hell out of here. Let's get some different weather in here. So as we start approaching March, and we start talking even February, because that's when guys start reporting spring training. That's when baseball starts going, and I'm excited. I hope you guys are too, and hopefully we have a great year. On top of that, guys, 19 days of Christmas. As I said, it's only me doing this, so it takes a little bit of time. However, got the notes done, got the masks in, got the signed the auto cards in there. Everything's good to go. Got everything. Now I just gotta send them out, mail them out to everyone with all their addresses. I don't have some of you, so if you're listening to this and you haven't sent me your address, try to send to Sorry We're Closed Twitter, because that's where most of them are. It makes my life a whole lot easier. But if you DM me on Twitter, I'm sure that's fine too. It might take me a little bit to see it, but I will usually get to it. I just don't check my Twitter DMs on my personal account. And Miranda helps me do the Sorry We're Closed Twitter, so she looks at that and is able to kind of bridge the gap and help me along this road of sending out 19 pieces of mail via the USPS, which is not that well run of a business. So thank you guys. I appreciate that. Appreciate you guys tuning in as always. Next episode drops Monday morning. Have a great weekend, guys, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for listening to the Sorry We're Closed podcast. Go subscribe to our email chain over at thepatlight.com and follow us on all social media. Until next time, guys, I'll see you at the bar.
Sorry, we're closed.